Yeah. I think one of the greatest ways to get your kids to be a read to read is to be a reader yourself. If you are demonstrating that you are reading on a regular basis, they're going to mimic that. They're going to appreciate it. Reading to them is huge. I still have very fond. I mean, I've been a good reader for many years, but I still have incredibly fond memories of being in fourth grade and our teacher, after recess every day, spending 20 minutes reading parts of Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing to the whole class. You know, if you read aloud to them, if you read with them like they're sitting next to you, if you are the reader, they're going to mirror that. And and the flip side is, and I'm guilty of this too, so I'm not throwing any shade. The flip side is, if you're on your phone all the time, if you use that as the distraction, and you're not consciously showing them that I'm actually reading a book on the phone, for example, that would be an exception. That is also what they're going to want to mirror. So what you value, they will value, and what you respect, they will respect. And go to the bookstore. Walk them through a bookstore. Show them the value of the library. Support your libraries, because libraries are very much under attack for crazy reasons. Support your libraries. Make sure those books are available. I was never told I couldn't read anything in the library, and I read things that probably weren't really for my age. I tried to read John Updike when I was in junior high school. It's like, it didn't do anything for me. But having that option, feeling that freedom to read whatever you want to read, and that voyage of discovery is huge. So as much of a supporter as you can be of that, that's I think your kids are largely going to reflect on that and pick up their own works. If they tell you they can't read or they aren't doing well, understand. And I think we're much better about this than we used to be. There may be a reading disability situation. They might not be able to literally comprehend the words because of a disability, and investigate that, because they should not be deprived of that kind of imagination and stories because the words don't resolve for them. It's not a disease. It's just something that has to be fixed. It has to be lived with.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the author podcast, where we get to meet amazing authors from around the world. Our author today is a writer who has a lot of the things that I love to read about. She's one of the people that writes these amazing articles, and I love this because I love music, I love pop stuff, I love Celtic stories, I love all this stuff. And it's really exciting to have Randee Dawn on the podcast today. You're going to love her. You're going to love her books, and a new book coming out real soon as the time of recording. And if you want to see a fox, it could be Randee. If you want to go that way, yes, it could be Randee. But also another fox on Randee's lap. Go to Randee's website and you'll be like, oh, that's a real fox. Randee, welcome to the show. Nice to have you on the podcast.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted, and I feel like I've written everything specifically for you after that description.
I know. It's so good, because everything that you write about is stuff that I would be searching for on the websites and looking online and Googling. So this is great to have time with you.
Yay. We have found one another.
Excellent. We talked before we hit record. On your website, front page, there's you and a fox. Please, for those people at home, they're like, wait, is that really a fox? Can you explain what's going on here with the fox on your website?
Absolutely. So this is a real fox. He's a semi-domesticated fox named Victor. And basically, I'm a huge fox fan. I love them. I think they're adorable. They're cat dogs. They just delight me. Do not want to own a fox. Nobody really wants to own a fox. They're a little smelly, and they're still not fully pets, right? But I learned that there was a Canid Rescue Association called the Judith A. Bassett Canid Center. It's kind of got a lot of names to it. But if you look it up, it's outside of San Diego, California, and you can go visit. You have to organize it ahead of time. It's about an hour outside San Diego. You can go visit the foxes, and if you set up a photo session, they will take photos of you with the foxes. All the foxes are on like a little leash that gets photoshopped out, so you don't actually see that, and they're not running wild all over you or anything. But I thought, if I'm going to do author photos, let's combine the two pleasures, right? So, it's really terrific. And I've gone there now twice for author photos, and I sponsor one of the foxes that's there, who's named Libby.
Nice.
And they're lovely people. And if you are interested in foxes, do find their website and go check them out.
Excellent. We'll grab a link and put that in the show notes as well for people to go and donate as well to these. I love foxes. They're curious. They're a little bit crazy, a little bit funny. Right. And they're just a lot of entertainment value in a small animal. Right.
If you have never watched a video of a fox hunting in the snow, I beg of you, go on YouTube, look that up. You will be laughing all day. So
There you go. I love it. I love that you have a passion for this as well. That's really nice. I'm glad that's on your website too. It's a good conversation starter for sure.
yeah, and again, I get to talk about the good deeds that they do over at the Kennett Center. They have other things there too. They have singing dogs, believe it or not. That's a part of the Kennett family. They have coyotes. They have wolves.
Nice.
So they have a bunch of different types of animals there that are all under the Kennett umbrella.
Nice.
But the foxes, I think, are the primary draw for most people.
I like it. Randee, talk a little bit about your background as a journalist. You've been writing for a lot of different places, some pretty notable places that people would be like, wait a minute, I know that. Kind of, what's your origin as far as getting into this as a journalist? And tell us a little bit about the places you have written for.
Sure. I'll try to do the sort of condensed version, but the actual origin of me getting to be a journalist ties into animals because I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. And I took an animal husbandry class when I was in middle school, like about, I was probably 13, 14. And I loved the animals, but then they said you have to give the animal a shot, the vaccine. And I'm like, I can't do that. So my mom was like, well, if you can't do that as your lifelong dream, what do you like to do? And I said, I like to write. And she said, well, you could be a journalist, which was actually very smart of her because there's a smaller chance that you're going to make money as a journalist than there is. And there's a greater chance, that you're going to make money as a journalist than there is as an author. Yeah. So that was an actual career I could pursue. And I've been doing it since basically in one version or the other since high school. It just, it's a long, slow climb up primarily. You write for free, then you write for almost nothing, and then you write for a little bit more than nothing, and so on and so forth. But I did a lot of music journalism when I was in college. Colleges are they love it when college students are really into certain kinds of music. And I started writing about music and doing reviews and going to concerts and hanging out with bands when I was in college. And then after college, the music didn't quite speak to me in the same way. And I segued into television and movie coverage. Some reviews, not a lot of reviews. I'm really interested in writing profiles about people. And that was true for music journalism also. There's something called new journalism, which really got started in the 1960s with authors like Gay Talese. And they would find a narrative structure to do a profile on. So they weren't making things up, right? This wasn't sort of like a blend of reality and fiction, but it was using sort of a fictional construct to do profiles. There's a famous one where the author Gay Talese was supposed to interview Frank Sinatra and they wouldn't give him to him, but he got to hang out and watch him anyway. So the article is called Frank Sinatra Has a Cold, and he never actually interviews him, but it's a fantastic piece of writing. And if you can chase it down, that's new journalism. And that's what I really wanted to do. And I got a couple of opportunities to do that with bands like Radiohead or Tori Amos. Wow. But journalism really switched right around the time the internet came into being and everything got shorter and journalism became a less valued thing to be doing because it felt like everybody else was doing it all of a sudden. And not to lament the slow death of journalism, but it meant that I haven't had a lot of chances to do that. So that was really one of my passions when it came to journalism. And now that I've been doing that for so long, I've written for outlets like the LA Times, the Today Show website, the New York Times, and Variety and the Hollywood Reporter. I've had those nice headlines. I've been very happy with that. But I'm also trying to make the segue now into more full-time writing of my books, which is the thing that I always wanted to do in the first place, but I didn't think I'd make any money at it. So here we are.
So what do you take from journalism into writing novels? What is something transferable and maybe something that's not easily transferable from journalism to novel writing?
Well, I think one of the reasons that it took me so long to get published as an author, and it may have just been that I wasn't any good, but internally, was that I was really not good at being critiqued, or I didn't understand the editing process. And I was very ego invested in the stories that I was writing. Not that I thought that they were perfect beings the minute I put them on paper, but I was so tied into them that if somebody gave me criticism, I couldn't hear it in any other way other than, you suck, you will never be a writer, please go away, right? That's how I was interpreting it. The years in journalism taught me how to be edited, taught me how to write more concisely, and how to express yourself in a variety of different ways that still told the story, but, was accurate to what you, any facts that you might want to include. So obviously fiction is a little different. You can make up stuff. I write about, fairies. I write about fantastic worlds. I can make stuff up. But there's this connection between making something feel real in fiction and how it feels in reality, right? They call it verisimilitude, right? You want to have the feeling that even if this is a completely made up environment in your fiction, that it feels real. So you have to know how to describe things in all the senses, how to sort of put yourself in the shoes of whatever character you're writing from. And I think that journalism really helped me along that path of writing. For me, journalism in a lot of ways was this long how to write period or how to write fiction class that I was just ongoing. So, and the editing was huge because once I needed to get my fiction edited, I was in a better state of mind and less ego tied to it in terms of how to cut things down and how to rearrange things, and also that it wasn't a criticism of my personality.
In journalism, you write to a deadline, right? This article is due at this point in time. So you're writing under this, you don't have the freedom to write forever. You have to turn it in. So does the practice of having a deadline in journalism help you as you write novels, or do you go a different direction?
Yeah, I think it probably does, although it isn't until this new book that I'm currently writing that I've ever written for a fiction deadline. I mean, there's been short stories like, oh, we will accept your story. Please write this story for us, right? Like that is a deadline. But in terms of trying to write a novel, I've always written the novel and then gotten it published. There was never this sort of, okay, we like this concept. Please go ahead and give us a draft by March or something. Yeah. And that is what's happening with the new book right here. And that one's coming out in March, and we can talk about that some more. But that's been a real interesting challenge because I've had a whole year to write a book, which you think, oh, a year. Who couldn't write a book in a year? But when you're trying to promote two other books, when you still have your journalism career, when you still have 8 other writing projects and things going on, I'm one of these people who needs a big block of time of nothing to really focus on the book, to really get immersed in it. And that has been really challenging to do this year. I'm about halfway through a first draft. So cross your fingers that I can give them a draft by March.
Does a first novel make the second novel easier to write?
Well, here's the thing. I don't think many authors write a book and then that is the first book that gets published, right? So I think most authors have several books. Sometimes they're called trunk novels because they sit in your trunk or desk drawer or whatever. A lot of people have those just sitting around because they were good, but they didn't cross the finish line, or they weren't accepted by a publisher, or for whatever reason they didn't publish, right? So you have those. So for me, I've been writing novels of varying quality since I was in middle school. And so I have all these trunk novels sitting around. And one of those novels, which did actually come out in April of this year, called The Only Song Worth Singing, that one got me my agent, but it didn't get me a publisher. So I knew that book was good enough to be published. It's just, there's so much luck and timing in this business that you may submit a book that is perfectly good, nothing wrong with it, should sell copies, but for whatever reason, the market isn't open to it at that time. Right. So that was the case with The Only Song Worth Singing. And then this new book, which is coming out or will be out by the time you listen to this, Leave No Trace, was another one of those kind of books. That's the book I started writing when I was in middle school. And there's very little similarities to what got published. There's a couple of characters and a location that's very similar from when I started it. But again, that one sat around and it didn't get picked up, and it almost got acquired, but then it didn't. And after those 2 books that my agent sent out didn't land, she said, maybe you should try writing something different. And I was like, different? I still want to write fantasy. But then I thought, okay, those books are kind of dark fantasy, a little more on the serious side. And various other things were going on in the background. And I ended up with this idea for a funny fantasy book about a reality TV show run by mythical creatures, for mythical creatures, but starring humans. And that one is called Tune In Tomorrow. And that got picked up. And then the people at the publishing house, Solaris Nova, they said, we like this book. It sold well. do you have other ideas for this universe? Like not necessarily a sequel, but like within the universe. And I said, I can do that because the book got picked up right before COVID. And I wrote another one in this universe during COVID. And I said, yes, as a matter of fact, I do have that book. And that is the book that's coming out in March. So for that specific reference, does the second book make it easier after you got the first book? 100%. But all those qualifiers mean that it's definitely, Tune In Tomorrow was definitely not the first book I ever wrote.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then the other two books, Leave No Trace and The Other Only Song Worth Singing, I was actually in the right place at the right time to talk to editors and publishers. And they said, we'll take a look at it. And they picked them both up right around the same time. Solaris said, we want more from the Tune In Tomorrow universe. So that's why all of this kind of came together in a very nice way. But it was almost a little bit too much.
Right. Yeah, because the one thing from a musical perspective, I'm a musician. I've been doing music for a long time. In writing music, I think that first album a band puts out, that album took them a lifetime to create, right? Because it was all of the things that led them to that first ever recording studio, first release. And I find a first album from a band to be kind of their moment to where they identify themselves and identify what they sound like.
Yeah.
And then from there, every album from there is maybe a repeat of the first album, or just write the hits or whatever, and it's a little bit harder to keep your identity after that first album because you change, the band changes, things happen. But I always have a soft spot in my heart for a band's first album. So that's and for an author's perspective, same thing. That first book took you a lifetime to get to that point. And then from that point on, you're going to change and grow. But that first book, that first writing is kind of a very special thing. So yeah, I kind of like going back to make that comparison.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair comparison. It's just that I don't think that there are maybe bands who say record an album on a very small label that doesn't go anywhere, and then they get the big break on the big label or their first album that way. I feel more like that's a little bit more like my own journey, because again, the first book that I got published is definitely not the first book that I wrote, and I will tell you, I started it in 2017 and it got bought in 2022. So I can tell you it is a 5-year investment of life, but it is not a whole life. The whole life really, I would say, is my new book, Leave No Trace, because I started writing it so young. And there's elements of it that I've just been interested in my whole life. What is it like to live in the woods? What are bands like? What are bears like and how do they behave? Because there's a bear character. So like, in a way, that's been kind of something I've been gathering information on my whole life and then trying to fit it into the book to get that verisimilitude I talked about earlier. Yeah.
And that whole thing about an overnight success. It's like, wow, these people came from nowhere. No, they've been working hard for a very, very long time. You just haven't heard of them yet. Same for an author. So you're toiling around, you're writing your book, you're getting a lot of no's, you're trying again, and then all of a sudden, bam, there it is. You've got some sense of success or movement forward as a writer. And that seems like it takes forever, but to everyone else, it seems like so easy. You just write a book and you're done, right?
Exactly. And I will promise you, like, anybody who's like, I always thought I could write a book. I mean, like, feel free to give it a chance. But the fact is, we need more readers. If you're fine with just being a reader, please be a reader. We need a lot of readers.
There you go. Good segue. Okay. So for my audience, the readers that are here, let's bring them into your world. I would like to talk about both of your first books that you've launched so we can kind of bring people into your world. I think that's the one thing I get a common response and question from my audience is, Dave, when your authors come on, please find out if they have more than one book so that we can fall in love with the author. Because once they find an author they love, you could write almost anything and they're going to love it. So let's go back to the first book, because I want to give it a little bit of time as well. You're going to come back in the future to talk about your third book, and I'm excited about that. But let's go back to that first book. Let's give kind of an overarching plot to the story. What is this book about? Maybe a little bit about the characters in that first one, just for the person listening that's really curious about that first book. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Right. Sure. So we're talking about Tune In Tomorrow at this point, right? Okay. So Tune In Tomorrow I never thought I could write a really funny book. But then I applied myself, and it was kind of a very freeing thing because you could just make things as goofy as possible. And I'm a sucker for dumb jokes and puns and stuff. But Tune In Tomorrow was a really good example of write what you know, because I'd been doing so much journalism for so many years. I'd written about TV shows. There's a lot of backstage, how the sausage gets made in that book. And I wanted to start with a character who had been struggling like I was struggling in my 20s. Star is our main character. She came to New York. She wants to be an actor. Nobody's hiring her. You know, she's not perhaps of the perfect body proportions. You know, she's getting it from all sides. And when we find her, she is working as a waitress in a diner, classic, you know, trying to get a big break actor location. But at night, she's going out and doing improv. And she is discovered by this magical casting director / showrunner from the TV show Tune In Tomorrow, which is created on the Fae side of the veil. So like humans don't know about it. But my whole idea was, what would entertainment be like if magical creatures were making it, right? So this particular show is kind of a reality show / soap opera. It's they portray it as this is what real human life is like. So the people who watch it, the magical creatures who watch it are like, oh, I never knew humans knew that. Oh, that's how you write a check. Embezzlement. Now I understand it more. Because if they're going to write their own entertainment, they're going to write not about the mundane things of their life, which is magic and dragons and all that, right? They're going to write about the mundane things of our lives because that's fascinating. That's magical stuff. I mean, what do you mean? You know, you have to get a license for things. So, and that's kind of in a lot of ways how soap operas work. They have it's day-to-day mundane little things, but then they also have these grand stories. And I had worked at a soap opera magazine, and I was thinking, okay, what if they ran a kind of soap opera-y / reality show, right? So Star is doing her best to get a break in this industry, isn't getting a break, but then this showrunner / casting guy named Jason, who is a faun, Faun, not like a deer, but like Mr. Tumnus, he shows up at one of her performances, and she's doing improv as a singing mango. And he's like, that's perfect. That's exactly what we need on our show. And he approaches her, and she gets hired on the show. And then she goes into this whole new world, which has all the creators of the show, the writer, the director, the camera people, all of that. They're all magical creatures. But the people who are on the show are humans. So she has to deal with discovering that this world actually exists, and then also trying to work in the very competitive and ego-driven world of acting. And one of her main obstacles is that there's this actress who's been on the show for many, many, many years and is very threatened by this new hire. Star is actually the first human hired on this show in 30 years. And when she starts asking, well, what happened to my predecessor? Like, suddenly nobody will talk about it. So now she has a mystery to solve because she doesn't want that to happen to her. Like, whatever that one did wrong, I don't want that to happen to me. So that's kind of the real basis for the book. But it also gave me a chance to discuss a lot of things, not just about how TV gets made, but there's a whole subplot where if you are on this show as a human actor and then you win an award, because of course there's an awards program, and you win an award, you get like a little bit of magic. And it might be very small, like I can look at an apple and see what the nutritional content is, you know, junky magic, right? But the very first award you do get on the show is significant, which is that you will not age as long as you are hired on this show. Oh. So like you could literally be on this show forever and ever. And the woman who's very threatened by her, Fiona, has been on for like 100 years practically. Like she's been doing this for ages and ages. If you do quit the show where you get fired, it's not like you walk across the veil and turn into ash, which is something that happens in folklore. I just wanted it to be like, okay, you'll start aging again once you step into back into the world. And that gave me a chance to discuss what that might be like, because, you know, I'm not 20 years old. I'm not 30 years old anymore. I'm not even 40 years old anymore, right? And the older you get, you start to see how the world kind of moves on regardless of you. And you stop listening to some of the same, you know, new music stuff. And then you don't even know the lingo. And you're like, then technology gets past you. And I feel like if you were in this sort of bubble where you were working and you're in this magical universe, and then you stepped out, like you went into that bubble in 1950, and then you came out in 2025, the world would just be too confusing. You will have lost all of your friends, your family, and it would the world would be overwhelming, right? So you're alive, but you're almost like you're dead because you're irrelevant now. And I think when people talk about this idea of like, I'd love to be immortal, no, you really wouldn't want to be. It would be like too much for you. I mean,
Yeah.
so that was an interesting conversation that I had between two characters in the book. And it is nice to be able to use a funny as an entrance and also as a stage, but also then take a moment to really examine what this might be like if you were going through it. So, yeah, I think that's the vast majority of Tune In Tomorrow. I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff. The security guard is a dragon. The camera people are dryads. We call them camera dryads. And I tried to put as many jokes and fun stuff in there as I could, as well as maybe possibly writing about people I could have worked with before. But I will neither confirm nor deny any of these people are based on real people.
There you go. Have you ever written that type of, in that style before, with humor and all that? Is that something new for you to write?
Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, I on the side, I write a lot of short stories on the side also. And quite a few of them are more horror than anything else. But I like the horror that has the sting in the tail, the sort of adult Roald Dahl stories or Saki or there's the twist in the tail kind of stories that I like that tend to be horror but also kind of have a punch at the end. So I'd never really written a lot of overtly funny stuff. And it was interesting to sort of give it a try, but the nature of the business that I was writing about is in many ways so ridiculous in the first place. It's not like I was trying to write about heart surgery, but make it funny. So I had done I had a weird story back in college. I had written an amusing, funny column for the college newspaper. And I guess it did well. And the editor said, hey, you already have a column for the newspaper. Why don't you just make it funny every week? And the idea of being told to write funny just completely blocked me. I'm like, I don't think I can be funny on command. Right. I'm not that kind of funny. So I just really put the idea that I could write funny at all off to the side. So it really hadn't occurred to me. And sometimes you just need somebody to give you that one sentence of prompt. My agent saying, why don't you try something different? Just gave me permission to do something different than I had been doing. And it turned out that was funny stuff.
Okay. You said your character in the story does improv. Have you ever tried improv yourself?
I love improv.
There you go.
Oh, one of the other benefits of getting older, yes, the world may pass you by, but you also just don't give a crap anymore in a lot of ways. I find that I am much more open and goofy and willing to try new things because I don't care what other people think as much anymore. Yeah. And when you do improv, you have to be open and willing to look ridiculous, and to find the ridiculous button in your brain that allows you to say silly things. So I have done, not extensively, but I have done several improv classes, and I've always thoroughly enjoyed it. And I've said once I have some more time, I'd like to take a regular improv class. I don't know that I would ever go on stage, but if I did, I would definitely want to be a singing mango. Because mango's
of course, I think all of us would love to be a singing mango. I think that'd be great.
Why not?
Right?
Be your best mango.
Okay. And so that book is coming out in March, right?
No, I'm sorry. That's my first book. That's my first book ever.
Okay.
That one came out in 2022, but then a version came out in 2024 with an extra chapter and a new cover.
That's right.
So that's been out, right? But there's a new one in the universe of Tune In Tomorrow. Mostly different characters. That one's coming out in March, and that is called We Interrupt This Program.
All right. I like this. This is really good. Okay. So let's talk about the one that's coming out right now. It's on, as time of recording, it's for pre-order right now. I love the big bear on the cover and the eyes. Oh, the eyes are drawing me in on the website here. Let's talk about the story behind this one, and what we can anticipate from a reader's perspective. A little bit more about this story as well.
Yeah, sure. So the history of this book really, and again, I'll try to be as compact as possible, but the history of the book is I saw a movie when I was about 10 or 11, and I was way too young to be seeing this movie. It was a New Zealand movie by Roger Donaldson called Smash Palace. And it's basically about the disintegration of a couple's marriage. She sleeps with his best friend and just goes to hell, right? But they have a young daughter. And there's a scene late in the movie where the father is in the midst of this custody battle. He's a bit unhinged and he's not going to get custody. And he kidnaps his own daughter and takes her into the New Zealand bush. And if you think of the Australian bush as being very dry and empty and deserty, the New Zealand bush is the opposite. It's very jungly, it's very foresty, it's green, it's gorgeous and everything, right? So his whole idea was just like, I'm going to hide out in the woods with her and we'll just live here now. Not very well thought through. But she gets a cold and he has to go to the drugstore and then they're captured. And that's the end of that segment of the book. But even at the time, I remember thinking to myself, what if they didn't leave? Like, what would that life be? What was it like? What would it be like to be, again, removed from society and grow up isolated and all that? So early versions of the book were really playing into that. I wanted to have them have sort of a big bad in the woods. And so I came up with this idea for an oversized bear. I didn't know enough about New Zealand. We didn't have the internet then, so I just placed it in the Rocky Mountains, which we do have here, and I could read more about. And that was really how the book got started. That was the premise. And then because I was a teenage girl at the time, I'm just like, what if a band showed up in the woods and then they got lost and then she would lead them out of the woods? Like that was my idea, right? So that was kind of these early versions that I wrote, and I would give chapters to my friends in school, and they would give me feedback, and I would read some of them over the phone at night. Like this was part of my middle school experience. So I had versions of this story over the years, but it clearly wasn't ready for prime time when I was in middle school, and I moved on to other things. And finally, I pulled it out again when I started writing fantasy, and I thought, maybe there's a way to meld the fantasy that I'm writing with this story that I had sort of sitting around. And I came up with this new version, and the bear was not a big scary. I mean, it's definitely a big scary bear. It's actually now modeled off of the bear goddess from Irish folklore called Ardeo. And then, so this was this magical creature that was living in the woods. And then my young woman character, whose father did bring her into the woods to escape this weird magic thing that's going on in the real world, because he hates magic. He's afraid of it. He treats it like it's a disease. And then she also makes friends in the woods with the Ghillie Dhu, which is out of Scottish folklore, who is the Green Man of the forest. A lot of people have heard of the Green Man. But he's a protector of young people and animals and the forest in general. So you have these two magical creatures that she becomes associated with. And into all of this comes the musicians.
Of course.
So we still have, it's not a whole band. It was a whole band before. But this time it is sort of a Justin Bieber-esque kind of spoiled singer and his BFF foster sister who writes the songs. And he's trying to escape this scandal. And so that he's like, they watch Deliverance and they get all the wrong messages. And he's like, I want to go hunt a bear and then we can get out of the eye of the press and everything. So everybody's dubious about this, but he comes with his songwriter, his best friend, this young woman named Stephanie, and their manager. And the manager is ex-military. And he's actually been fighting in this war that's going on between the Fae and humans, which is very much background, but he brings that baggage with him into the forest. So you have the father and this manager who both hate magic and are afraid of it and will do anything to destroy it. And then you have this young woman, these two musicians, and the Ghillie Dhu and Ardeo. And there's a whole clash of cultures, and there's a whole lot of disaster that happens, and there's survival, and there's a fox, and I threw a lot of
fox.
stuff. I know. Yes. There's a fox in there. So I was able to throw all these things that I had been just storing up. It was a bit like I'd been storing up nuts all these years, and finally found a way to put them into the correct recipe. And that's how we ended up with this. So the book, it refers to this Fae-human war because the Faes are losing their land and they're streaming into our world. And of course that has metaphor for what's going on today. But I can see writing another book after this in which the war is over and we see how things pan out, and bringing in characters from this book, but also maybe even the book that just came out earlier this year, The Only Song Worth Singing. So they're all standalones and they're all separate, but I can imagine doing this third book in which we tie a lot of things together that are not currently tied together.
Well, talk about the covers of your books. Like, they're gorgeous. Like, they're really beautiful.
I'm so happy.
Do you have a lot of input on the covers as an author when you're doing this?
So for these two books, The Only Song and Leave No Trace, which are both on the same publisher, from the same publisher, which is why I mentioned them together. They were done. I don't know the artist's name, basically. My publisher found him. He's a young art student who recently graduated. He's from Pakistan.
Gorgeous.
And I would love to give him more credit, but I do not have his name. And I've asked, but I do not have his name. And what I had in terms of input for these books is I like, this is a picture that I have in my head, and I tried to sketch it out and I sent it to them. And versions of it then came back. They kind of got ideas. I picked photos from around the internet and I said, this is sort of an inspiration picture for this character. This is an inspiration picture for this bear or something like that. And then they gave me sketches and we worked on the sketches, and you go through a couple of iterations. Well, this doesn't look right here, or this is too big, or the hand isn't right over here, or something like that. Yeah. We don't use AI. But when I say the hand isn't right, it's not AI. It's just, this is not facing the right direction or something. But for Leave No Trace, I was particularly pleased because, again, this is something I'd had in mind for so many years. And I love the idea of the bear looming over it all, because the bear is scary, but the bear is also helpful. So this is an important thing to remember. And on the cover of Leave No Trace also, there's a little picture of a blue butterfly. And that is something that comes into play later, because my favorite covers of books are the ones that have something's going on in the cover, but you don't know what it is. And then you get about halfway through your book and you're like, that is. So I love those little Easter eggy things that reward you for reading the book and then are reflected on the cover. So
they're beautiful.
The flowers down by the feet, everything all means something.
They're beautiful. They're really, really nice.
And I think they're very beautiful. Yeah. Thank you.
Really good.
Glad you like them.
I love the bear. I love the eyes on the bear too. Like, it just, you're like drawn to that. I'm like, it's like they're following me when we're talking on your website. It's really good.
Maybe they are. Maybe they are.
I like that. Any thought of an audio version of the books in the future?
The rights are available. So if anybody's listening to this and would like to buy the rights, yes. Okay. I would 100% love an audio version. We have an audio version of Tune In Tomorrow, but we don't have these two books. Publisher worked in a slightly different way. So would love that. But we do have ebooks. Yeah. So at least there's those.
What is the age range for your audience? Like, I'm thinking of parents listening to this going, would this be right for my kids? What age group would you say your books lie in?
So I don't write for kids, but each book has a level that I think a young person could read. The first book, Tune In Tomorrow, is my husband's a teacher, and it's in the middle school library. Oh, good. So, like, there's nothing in there that the librarian didn't think a middle schooler could read, right? The only song worth singing, we haven't gone too much into this, but there's a character who sort of seduces the musicians and then inspires their music. So there's not erotica and there's not overt sexuality, but there's sort of like they're in bed and having fun together. And so you could decide if that's something that's a concern for your children. I did go to a con and spoke to a mother about this because her 11-year-old was like, I want that book. And I said to the mom, this is the story that's going to be in there, just so you know. And she's like, it's okay, let her have it. So I think this is a parental decision to make as well as content. And then Leave No Trace. Our main character is 17 going on 18. We have more adult characters, so it's a real mix. But there's some swearing in any given book. Not a lot. There's some. But in any given book, there's a little swearing. And there's some violence in Leave No Trace, but nothing too horrific. But there's no sex. Yeah. I think that's the thing most people are concerned about for whatever reason in my country, at least, we don't worry too much about is there violence in the book. And swearing is, again, a second tier. But if you tell somebody there's sex in the book, they want to know about it. There's longings in this book, but there's not sex.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's good to know. So you're going to keep writing. You're going to keep sharing stories with us. Again, the name of the podcast, Living the Next Chapter. So it's kind of one of my questions is, how are you living your next chapter? But can you give us some kind of view into the future? I know we talked about books coming out next March and stuff, but what can we anticipate from you as an author for those that fall in love with your books? What can we see into the future for you?
So I'm actually entering a new chapter myself because my husband is retiring. I am able to work remotely and also write wherever, and we're going to do a lot of traveling. Nice. So that's actually going to take me out of this sort of day-to-day normal routine that I've had for a long time. So I have to figure out how that's going to work. But I do fortunately We Interrupt This program coming out in March. Mm-hmm. There is a third book in the Tooniverse that has been contracted, and I'm currently writing that now. So I imagine that might come out in early 27, maybe late 26, depending on how fast it moves. So that's the next book in that. And if everything goes well, I would love to write the third book that would connect to Leave No Trace and The Only Song Worth Singing. I have a manuscript that is currently out, being looked at by publishers, but nobody's picked it up yet. And so that would be sort of another funny book, but in like a superhero universe. I have a draft of another book that's more serious, and it's a mystery, and it's in a near future where climate change has sort of the seas have come in and New York is partially drowned, and that's where it takes place, which is a mystery. So like I've got stuff to work on before I really even have to start completely from scratch on something else. And it's a wonderful place to be in. I just need the time to do it. And I'm hoping that this next chapter that I'm moving into, where maybe I'm doing less journalism and we're traveling, I can actually get those words onto the page and get those things going, because I've got more books and I want them to be out there.
Excellent.
If you like me, I know you want them to be out there.
Yes.
So this is
good stuff. Let's talk about your website as well, Randee, so we can see Victor the fox and we can see the bear with the eyes and all that. Tell us about your website. Where do we go? And I have a question to wrap up here before you leave.
Sure. So almost anything you need to know about me is at randeedawn.com. Randee, as you can probably see in this video, is with 2 E's. So randeedawn.com. I'm all over the social medias, either as Randee or Randee Dawn. There's author Randee Dawn on Facebook. So I'm pretty easy to track down, and all the links are on the main page anyway. But you can see a lot of my articles there. You can see other books that I have stories in. There's usually an excerpt that I have there. And there's always links to where you can buy the books. So, and then I occasionally do a blog post, but I just don't always have the time. So when I can, I do a blog post. So yeah, that's the place to go, is randeedawn.com.
Good. Yeah, and all your socials are on there. Everything's ready to go. I love that. You said at the beginning of our conversation that we need more readers. Let's talk to the parents, the teachers, people listening who have the ability to influence and guide their children and kids towards falling in love with reading. How can we as parents be a good example as adults to the next generation so we get more readers reading great books like yours? What do we do?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest ways to get your kids to be a read to read is to be a reader yourself. If you are demonstrating that you are reading on a regular basis, they're going to mimic that. They're going to appreciate it. Reading to them is huge. I still have very fond. I mean, I've been a good reader for many years, but I still have incredibly fond memories of being in 4th grade and our teacher, after recess every day, spending 20 minutes reading parts of Tales of a 4th Grade Nothing to the whole class. You know, if you read aloud to them, if you read with them like they're sitting next to you, if you are the reader, they're going to mirror that. And and the flip side is, and I'm guilty of this too, so I'm not throwing any shade. The flip side is, if you're on your phone all the time, if you use that as the distraction, and you're not consciously showing them that I'm actually reading a book on the phone, for example, that would be an exception. That is also what they're going to want to mirror. So what you value, they will value, and what you respect, they will respect. And go to the bookstore, walk them through a bookstore, show them the value of the library, support your libraries, because libraries are very much under attack for crazy reasons. Support your libraries, make sure those books are available. I was never told I couldn't read anything in the library, and I read things that probably weren't really for my age. I tried to read John Updike when I was in junior high school, and it's like, it didn't do anything for me. But having that option, feeling that freedom to read whatever you want to read, and that voyage of discovery is huge. So as much of a supporter as you can be of that, that's I think your kids are largely going to reflect on that and pick up their own works.
Excellent.
And if they tell you they can't read or they aren't doing well, understand. And I think we're much better about this than we used to be. There may be a reading disability situation. They might not be able to literally comprehend the words because of a disability, and investigate that, because they should not be deprived of that kind of imagination and stories because the words don't resolve for them.
Yeah.
It's not a disease. It's just something that has to be fixed. Yeah. It has to be lived with.
Nice. Let's encourage that next generation. We want to continue readership to grow. We want great authors to keep writing stories. And in a world where you can push a button and AI will give you a story, it comes better from a person who has
a story,
right? It comes much better from someone who has heart and creativity and hides the little Easter eggs and loves the pleasure of a nice, comfortable afternoon with a fox. All of these things combined together make a really great story. So, Randee, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. Come back in the future. Let's talk about more of your works as they come out. And congratulations on some really great books for our audience. Really appreciate having you on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Excellent. Everyone, all information, as always, for Randee in the show notes. Please go through and click through, grab all the books you can, leave great reviews. Randee, I'd love to hear your thoughts from a reader's perspective on the characters, on the story, and it also helps other people find Randee's books as well. So please leave great reviews when, not if, when you buy Randee's books, so more people will come find Randee. Again, Randee, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You have a good afternoon.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.